Hi, my name is Joe Nexus. I'm a writer of fantasy and science fiction novels, but today I'm not talking about anything I've written. I'm talking instead about book covers, or in particular about a sort of an accidental scientific experiment I stumbled into in an Oxfam charity bookshop in Chester a year or so ago when I was there with my wife. Now, I should say up front that the two books I'm about to discuss I haven't read. They're on my rather large to-read pile, which is basically about a third of the books in this room. I mean no disrespect to the authors concerned. I'm sure they're brilliant novels. I just haven't yet got round to reading them. What I'm talking about is the covers. I also want to say that I believe there's nothing wrong at all whatsoever in an author writing a book in a genre which is currently something that people want to read. That's a very, very sensible commercial decision. So when I talk about the genres these authors write in, I mean no disrespect. What I'm fascinated about is this accidental experiments I stumbled into, which you'll see. Now, obviously everyone's heard of The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. You must have heard it. I mean, I think the world's... Let's just assume you've heard of it, because I'm not going to explain it. It's the Da Vinci Code. I'm not actually here to talk about the Da Vinci Code. It's not actually a bad book. I see what people are saying when they say that some of the writing style perhaps isn't... They don't like the writing style. And I'm not saying I like the writing style, but I read it, I enjoyed it. You know, sort of a grip and plot. I have some issues with it, but yeah. Look, loads of people liked it. I enjoyed reading it, so yeah, can't complain. Now, it was so successful, as is always the case, it created a genre in itself. It's a bit like when a book came out a few Christmases ago, which is something like, you know, Why Don't Penguins Feet Freeze? And of course, then the next Christmas you can't move for books like, you know, How Do Dogs Pick Their Noses and so on. So the Da Vinci Code was such a huge success, it creates a whole sub-genre all of its own of vaguely mythical, vaguely biblical kind of quasi-religious, hidden histories, or secret history, I think is a genre, mysteries. The idea of these being kind of truths that are out there, but not in the X-Files sense. And I've got a few of them. Venice Conspiracy, John Trace. I seem to really enjoying reading that. The Rule of Four. The Rule of Four. Ian Caldwell, Dustin Thompson. Actually, I love this. If you actually you want a sort of a Da Vinci Code thriller that's maybe a bit better. Sounds a bit rude. It's really good. Loved it. But obviously, so an awful lot of authors around this time, about sort of, you know, I don't know, 2002, 2003, were obviously thinking, I need to write a Dan Brown-esque kind of thriller. As I said, nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And so you're obviously looking for something with a kind of a Christian theme. You look for some kind of Christian thing where there's elements of sort of hidden sort of history and suggestion. And an obvious candidate is the Knights Templar, which there's all sorts of rumours around, all sorts of strange sort of stuff. And I think they actually were featured in the Da Vinci Code, I seem to recall. So I'm in this Chester Oxfam bookshop, browsing away, and I find a sort of a Dan Brown-esque kind of book about the Templars. And I think, oh, that's interesting. But anyway, 'cause I'm not actually looking for a Dan Brown-esque book. And then a little while later, so I find the same book on the opposite sort of like shelves, and I think that's a bit funny. They're not shelved together. And I think, hang on a minute, this isn't the same. And I go back, and what I find is it's two completely separate books, both of which are Dan Brown-esque thrillers about the Knights Templar. So we have The Last Templar by Raymond Curry, I think. And then we have Steve Berry, The Templar Legacy. Now, what I find fascinating about this is these books are similar enough in the sense they're essentially in the same genre, that Dan Brown-esque secret history, Christian thriller sort of, you know, myth sort of genre. And they're about the same aspect of that, because they're both about the Templars, the Knights Templar. And which basically means, I think, that the cover artists would have been pretty much given identical briefs. I think, and you've ended up with two covers which are completely and totally interchangeable. One cover could have fitted the other book and so on. So you can see they both have, so the first thing is the Knights Templar had the Red Cross. And as you can see, they both have the Red Cross. But the Last Templar has it more as an actual Red Cross, whereas the Templar Legacy goes for more sort of abstract cross effect. Then there's also the actual Knights Templar, the seal itself, and you can see the Last Templar has the seal there, right in the centre, again in a definite sense. Whereas in the Templar Legacy, you can see, if you look carefully, you can see the whole seal there. but in a much more abstract sense. Meanwhile, the Last Templar, because it's gone very concrete for the Templar symbols, it then has the very abstract sort of skyline of, I think it's New York, in the background. So what you have is two completely different takes on essentially the same thing. Essentially, also the Last Templar, if you look for the cover, again it goes on this actual kind of thing. You have like the ripped paper, like a ripped parchment effect on the end, whereas again Templar Legacy goes abstract in black. So you have two different takes on what must essentially have been the same brief, one of which goes quite abstract and one of which goes quite definite. And what I just find it fascinating that you could pretty much say two books which would have been an almost near identical brief. So I'm really curious of, and I've written blog posts about this in the past. I'll link to the blog post in the description of this actually. And I've done votes. I've gone to conventions and taken votes to see which one people like the best. So my question, Jeff, here is basically which one do you like the best? I'm very curious to know. I won't say which is my favourite because I don't want to be, partly because I'm not quite sure actually. I oscillate, but also because I'm curious to know really what everyone thinks. So do you like the more kind of crisp, the crisp, hard-edged sort of actual artifacts look of the Last Templar, or do you like the more abstract, fluid look of the Templar Legacy? So there's your choice, and I would love to see answers in the comments and see what people think. Oh, and as the kids say, please, like, comments, subscribe. I'm supposed to be pointing to lots of things right now, but as I say, anyway, please vote.